for the people, or is it already started?
You can go.
Okay, great. So yeah, thanks everyone for joining. So my name is AJ. One of the organizers of Gamesground, and for those of you that don't already know, Gamesground is a Berlin-based gaming industry and community event, and it's coming up in November, our fourth edition. And we decided to do a kind of free education webinar series called Side Quests, GG Side Quests, and this is our first side quest. And today we have Colin and Anthony from Discord, and yeah, hopefully they're gonna provide some nice information for all the game developers out there to, yeah, just understand a little bit about how to leverage Discord. So if you have any questions during the presentation, just feel free to throw it in the chat. The tag team here is going to answer everything as you go, and towards the end there'll be a full question and answer situation, Q&A. And please, everyone, make sure they're muted so we can go without interruption. And I'm going to hand it off to Anthony and Colin. Thanks, guys.
Cool. Thanks, AJ. Thanks, Tom. Cool. Welcome, everybody, to building your Discord server through every stage of game development. I'm Anthony. And this is Colin. We are both senior developer advocates at Discord. And what that means is we come and do events, we do live streams, we write all of our documentation, we help with education around our APIs and our SDKs. So both like outward and then also taking like, user feedback and everything, running our Discord, bringing all that information back to the developers so we can figure out what makes sense to build and change. I come from a indie games background, been in that space for a long time. Colin, I don't know if you want to say anything about yourself or...
I'll let you run with it.
Cool.
But yeah, I'm the docs guy, so thanks.
Colin writes the docs. Colin lives and breathes the docs. All right, cool. So before we get started, I just want to like frame Discord a little bit. So Discord has one of the world's largest and most engaged community of players. We've got over 90 million daily active users. Over 90% of our users play games monthly. Every month we have around 5 billion hours detected of gameplay, which is like honestly insane. I don't even understand. I can't even understand that like amount of time. And then around 10,000 unique titles that we detect played monthly. So there's a huge gaming audience on Discord. Players are there, and building a community can help you capture that audience and keep them engaged. So if you build a community, you can create a space where your players are interested in joining and sort of existing and being around each other. So we're going to talk a little bit about what to do and like how to think about building a Discord community through different stages of your game's development. So whether you're just starting, prototyping, brand new project, or you're just actively working on something, alpha, beta, when you're ready to start, playtesting, getting your game out there for people to see, what to do in the weeks around your release, and then how to think about your community as we go into your post-release. What are you thinking about to keep your community healthy and alive and engage your players and maybe even bring them back into your game? Cool. So let's start with what to do from the very beginning. I always say it's best to start early. So the earlier that you can, create your community, the better chance you have to build something where players are going to be interested in coming and joining and existing. The reason for this is if you happen to be showing your game off and a Reddit thread or somewhere and it gets picked up by news, you already have the space for your players to join that are interested. I think it's great to set up wish lists on Steam and capture your audience in some way. But if you can create a Discord server, give them a community and a space to be in and to be excited in, the earlier you can do that, I think the better. Once you've created a server, we have something called community servers that anybody can turn on. This actually gives you a ton of really cool features in Discord. So the first thing is your server becomes discoverable. So users can actually search for your server by the name And if you've named it after your game, it makes it easy for them to find. You get things like community onboarding. So if you've ever joined a Discord server and you see those like steps of like, a few questions here and there, or maybe assign some roles, that's onboarding. You also get some really cool channel types. So stage channels, sort of like this, where you'd actually get to have people on a stage and have a bunch of users join, players join, and you'd be able to present something to them. You could do like live streams and stuff that way, AMAs. You get announcement channels. So announcement channels let you broadcast, there's kind of read only for everybody else and lets you kind of broadcast information. But it's really cool because other Discord servers can subscribe to that channel and get those notifications in their own server. So it gives you this kind of like newsletter where every time you post to that channel, anybody else that's subscribed to it will get that message. You also get server insights. So after you reach 500 members in your server, you get a pretty detailed breakdown of like, where users are joining from, what's your attrition, all of those like kind of, nitty gritty stats of like just information that could be useful to, understanding your server and the health of your community. And then you also get events. So events are a way to like actually create an event at a certain time, and you can set a certain channel, and users can say, or players can say like, yes, I'm interested in this, and it'll actually remind them, which is really cool because they could, subscribe to this event, and a day before or whatever, you could like message everybody, and then there's just like when you start the actual event itself, they get a notification for that event starting. We use this a lot for our live streams and stuff, and it's been super useful to like help people remember that something is happening and where. We'll talk a little bit about how to use a bunch of these different things as we go. Cool. So I'm gonna probably say this a bunch throughout, but when you're creating your community, start simple. Start with like only what you need and grow those things as you need them. That's super important for both channels and roles. For channels, you at the start only need a few things. You really only need to like set your rules and define kind of the rules of your space. Have an announcement channel to post game updates, new things that are happening. Have a space for your players to come and discuss the game, and then have some sort of way for them to give feedback, bug reports. So I like to separate these two into two different things, but forum channels, which we'll talk about in a second, are great ways to do this. And then also having like a private space for your developers to talk, in case something is happening and you just need to like quickly just talk about anything that's happening in the community. The reason I say start simple is imagine you're like a new player and you're coming into the server, and all you see is like 40 channels. All of them are empty. Nothing's happening in any of them. It's going to kind of feel dead from the start, and you're kind of setting your community up a little bit for failure. So these are sort of like the core channels I would recommend, and then maybe you have like an off topic or something, but think about what makes sense for your game and your community. And as people are asking for different things, think about if it makes sense to like add more channels. So forum channels I mentioned. Forum channels are a fantastic way to capture both feedback and bugs. They're a great way for you to show players that you're like listening to them. It allows players to go and post really anything. In this case, a bug report. It lets you allow for different tags. So you can see here I've allowed for different types of bugs to be posted, and that really helps you with sorting later. So if a user elects, this is a matchmaking bug or a translation bug, when you go into the forum channel later, you can actually sort by those tags, and you can go and like, maybe you're doing like a sprint where you're fixing performance, and you want to go and see what are all the performance issues that players have reported. It also gives you a chance to add like guidelines. So for bug reports, I think this is super useful because you don't want somebody to just say, oh, it like didn't work, it crashed, whatever. But if you can get more information like OS and game version and all those things, you can set post guidelines in here for people to follow when they go to post. So forum channels, great way to capture feedback. Roles also, from the start, you really don't need much more than just a developer role to distinguish who your developers are. yeah, we'll talk more about roles as we go on. We'll add a few more. And then another thing that I'm going to probably say a few times here, but your community isn't going to build itself. So, this is a great way to start as you're starting to think about, as you're working on your game. But if you just create your community and like put it out there and let people join, like your players may join, but they're not going to, they're not going to sit there and create the community for you. Like, you need to be in there. The developers need to be in there, and they need to be talking somewhat regularly to kind of, give players something interesting to like come and latch onto. So whether that's posting screenshots about what's happening in development, or talking to the players about balancing patches, running events. We'll talk about more later, but you really need to be in the community to like kind of make it feel alive. So yeah, don't just sort of set it and forget it, because you're going to set yourself up for failure. All right, so we talked a little bit about what to do as you're starting development. Let's say you're in a place where you're ready for playtesters. You're ready to show the public, maybe start posting about it in different spaces. What do we need to do now? And basically, your server, you're going to want your server to grow with your game. Then that's true for all of this. Like, you're not going to be able to just set your server up one way and then expect it to, the community to like stay the same throughout your game's life cycle. As you start doing playtesting, you can do some really cool things to run playtests and stuff in your server. So we're going to talk about different roles we can add, how we want to think about onboarding, playtesting, and moderation with that server. So the next thing you want to think about is some sort of testing role, for a couple of reasons. If you've got players joining and you want them to be testing your game, this sort of sets up this like fun, kind of status symbol for them that, later on, maybe after you finish beta testing, you kind of aren't giving that role out anymore. And those players will be in your community. They'll feel some sense of attachment to your game because they helped develop it. And so it just gives players this like sense of belonging in your community. And so, yeah, creating some sort of like beta tester, play tester, alpha tester role to give the early testers, to give to them as like, kind of a little bit of status is kind of nice. And then one really cool thing that we released, I believe in the last few months, is something we call community invites. So if you've ever invited somebody to Discord, you can create like a link and you can set its expiration and number of uses. You can also now add roles to that. So if you are able to like manage roles in your server, so if you're admin, moderator, whatever, you can add different roles to an invite now, that when a player accepts that invite, they automatically get that role. It also works where if a player's already in your server and they get that invite, it'll just give them the role too. So great way to invite beta testers. Great way to just like invite people with like, specific roles without having to like wait for them to get into the server and automatically or manually go and like, set that. So yeah, great way to like hand out a link, in like a Reddit post or wherever you're asking to like, trying to find players to come and test. Another thing, so we talked a little bit about events. So something that you can do to organize playtests is you can set up weekly events. You can also just set up one-off events. And you can kind of, in the description, say what it is you're trying to test. So, let's say you wanted to test, you've got like a live service multiplayer game, and you want to test load on the servers. You can set up a weekly playtest where, anybody that's interested can subscribe. They'll get a notification. You just say, go jump in the game. And you can get that like spike of users or players to come and like actually play the game and then see how your games and servers can handle that. Something fun you can also do is have your developers join in. That's always like super exciting for players. You can also even have them join like a voice server and play live together. Anything to sort of build excitement and make players excited to like come and try whatever is new or whatever it is you're trying to test. All right, cool. So that's sort of the like playtest phase, things that you can think about as you're ready to like, show off your game. What do we want to think about as we're getting, close to release or even the week of release? We want to make sure that we're sharing our community is a big one. So think about all the places that you could put those invite links that can help people find your community. Very like, especially in your game's title screen. If I think I see this a lot now. If you like launch a game, somewhere in the corner there's like a join our Discord, join our community. Making sure that anybody that's interested in joining it has an easy way to access and find that. So title screen, in your marketing materials, in your like social bios, if you're posting on Twitter, Reddit, Instagram, make sure that there's a link there. Same with your press kit. If press picks up your game, make sure there's a link to your community. I think the most important place is obviously the store page. That's like the #1 place you want people to go. But I think second most important is actually having that community, because players that are interested in your game that may not be ready to purchase it yet might still join the community, and it gives you a chance to show them what's happening as you're releasing updates and all of that. So yeah, just make sure that you have links to your community somewhere, and that they're like front and center and easy to find. A big thing too is during release week, you're going to have an influx of players. So think about moderation. Something you get with community servers is automod. This is a way to automatically set up blocked words in players' names. It'll also like block spam and like spam content in like as people are like posting in your server. It'll allow you to like set up words that you can actually like block ahead of time, so you can actually set custom words. It's regular expression based too, so you can like do some fuzzy math around, or some fuzzy word choice around like what it is you're trying to block. We run like a pretty big server, and we've had to like learn regular expressions to do this specifically. There's a lot of things that people can come in and say in spam, and so automod does a lot of heavy lifting for you. But you might also want to think about actually getting moderators and paying moderators for your server, especially if it's going to grow quite large. So automod's great for hundreds of users, but when you're starting to hit those like thousands, it makes a lot of sense to actually have a moderator in your server, whether that's a community manager, or the developers, or if you're growing big enough, you might even end up having and paying for like a suite of moderators or a whole team. And it's also important to create a role for them to distinguish who they are. So you want your moderators to carry a little bit of weight if they're talking to users or telling them if they're noticing some negativity or anything in your community that you don't want. You want your moderators to go in there and actually stop that, and you want them to hold a little bit of weight. So having a specific role for them sort of distinguishes them as moderators, and then creating private channel for them to discuss anything that's happening. If there's if you're large enough to have like a raid or something happening, it's always great for them to have like a private channel to discuss things that are happening. Also, another thing to think about is protecting your server. So you can set up different levels of protection for your server. We highly recommend requiring two-factor authentication for both your players, your users, and your moderators. Moderators, especially because you don't want, if for any reason their account gets, hacked or whatever, somebody takes over their account, like you don't want a moderator with permissions to be, in your server, like doing anything crazy. So making sure they have two-factor authentication set up. But yeah, you can do that also for anybody joining your server, which greatly cuts down on spam and like bots and yeah. So these are all settings that you could set up in your server settings. Another thing to think about too, we just talked about this year. We just launched this. So claiming your game. So through our developer portal, which you have access to if you have a Discord account, you can actually go and find your game and sort of claim it and link your community to your game. And what this does is it gives your community a verified badge. So when players go to search for it in Discord, they'll see that check mark and know that that's sort of the community for the official community for your game. You also get custom invite backgrounds. So as players are sharing invites to your game, you have a nice little banner that you can customize. And then you also get a vanity URL. So you get to actually name what the like main invite link to your server looks like. Generally it's whatever your game is. So it'd be discord.gg/ Dungeon Delvers, if that's the name of your game. Slay the Spire 2, since we were talking about it. Cool. Yeah. So that's claiming your game. And then some things you want to think about too is like when you go to launch your game is you're going to want to like turn this into a community moment. So I'm sure you're like super busy thinking about like, yes, I'm going to go press the button on Steam and turn it public on itch. There's some things you can do in your community that will also help raise excitement. Like you're going to have this influx of players. You're going to want to do something special in there so that they see that there's a reason to be in there. And whether that ends up being, running events. So maybe having like, developer AMAs that week, maybe not day of because you want players playing your game, but like sometime that week. Also, doing like weekly game nights where you host players to come and join and play together. If you've got like a multiplayer game, maybe you set up voice channels specifically for players to join together and play. But yeah, turning your community into a space for players to now get together and talk about your game, and also come and see the developers and hear about what's happening. So yeah, there's a lot of different things you can do to basically create excitement right during your launch in your community. Another thing to think about too is community culture. So this isn't something that you're going to be able to create specifically on your own. Your community is going to come up with like memes and poke fun at bugs in the game, and I think it's important to like lean into those things. Especially if there's like some issue with the game, like lean into it. Obviously like try to fix whatever's happening, but like try to paint it positively, and then make emoji, make stickers, make memes out of the things that are happening. And the great thing about this is players can use those memes in your server, but they can also take emoji and use them outside, and other people can see where those emoji came from. So it'll help your like server spread a little bit that way, but it's also just like it gives you this like fun shared visual language that gets players excited and having fun together. Cool. So that was a lot about what to think about during your release week. What do we do once the game's out? There's still a lot to think about, and especially if you're like building a live service game or planning on releasing updates, you're going to want to do things to keep your community healthy and alive. So again, you're going to want to stay active in your server, and whether that's running game nights or even just like showing up and telling players what's coming, something to do. So do something to like keep players excited and interested, and let them know that like there's more coming, and yeah. So if your developers are working on DLC or a bug fix, you can leak like cryptic pictures of what's happening, or even just show screenshots, videos of fixes, new characters, whatever you're doing. Just make sure that there's some amount of trickle from your development team into the server so that players can see something's coming and get excited about what's to come. Another cool thing too is like as you do bug fixes, the great thing about those forum channels is you can see who reported things, and so you can give shout outs to players too. In let's say you've got a whole release that's just bug fixes. In your announcements post, you can mention each of the players that reported a bug that you ended up fixing. So that gives players kind of like a deeper connection to the game itself. It also, you can think about giving them special roles for like having found bugs for your game, or even like thinking about roles to give to players for being like excellent, or very kind in your community. Just a lot of different things that you can do to keep that community running and to have players be excited about what's coming. Cool. So something fun you can think about. This is going to be super dependent on your game, but you can do things like create specific roles for classes or factions in your game. You can even set up roles for players that have done, gotten specific achievements. And you can tie channels to only be viewable by certain roles. So like in this case here, I've got roles set up for roles in the Discord community, set up to follow classes in a game. You can even set it up so that in your onboarding, players can elect which of those classes they play. And then you can add specific channels for players that elect those roles to actually go and discuss strategies and whatever for those roles. So yeah, again, super dependent on like what your game is, but there's some really fun things you can do with both channels and roles. Yeah. Also, start thinking about like, your game and your community don't have to be two different, separate things. There's ways to actually bridge them together. So we have a way to create bots on Discord, and bots are like these super powerful ways to interact, for players to interact with. You can do things like sending and receiving messages. You can create interactive UI. Players can interact with them through different commands in Discord. So you can see here a player is running what we call / command, and it shows a leaderboard. So there's a lot of different ways that you can create bots to do interesting things, because a bot at the end of the day is just code running somewhere on a server, and it has access. You can give it access to your game server. So you can do really cool things, like if a player, you can do, some of it requires a little bit of like account linking. So a player would have to share, who they are on Discord, like in your game, and we have different ways to like super easily do that. But once they do that, you can do things like custom leaderboards. So in this case, I have like a custom leaderboard set up for a bot that shows off a player's daily score, but it only shows it with their friends. So you can have them run these commands and see things that are specific to them, whether it's leaderboards or their builds or score from like a run that they can share anywhere. And so it's not just in your server. They can actually take this bot and we call it user installable, where they can like install it on themselves, and they can use this anywhere. So that means that they could actually go into their own like personal gaming server with their friends and share their leaderboard or share a build. And other players that or their friends that play the game can get excited about what they're seeing. Maybe they want to go beat their friend's score, and then their friends that may not have the game see it and think, can think like, oh, like I've been interested in this game. Maybe it's time to like actually finally buy it and go play it. So there's a lot of really cool things you can do with building bots that kind of connect your game back to your community. You can also do things like creating daily rewards. So if you have your bot set up in your server to give out daily rewards, you can also do things like special limited edition rewards. So like if you've got like a DLC or an update coming where you want to like highlight a new character or something that's happening, you can give players access to that in your server, and that helps drive players to your server to get those rewards specifically. And then also anybody that's in there maybe gets excited that you're releasing like a new skin or something, and maybe that re-engages them and brings them back into the game. So bots are a super powerful way to do a lot of those things. And there's just so much space there. We have a lot of documentation for you to like, we have some guides too, specifically around doing these things and what to think about, because it is very specific for everybody's game based on genre and all of that. Cool. Okay, so back in your community too. Basically, if you want to be, keeping your community alive and thinking about, how to keep players excited about your game as time goes on. Some things you can do is, run developer AMAs. Again, I think I talked a little bit about this already, but like, game nights, you can do live streams where your devs actually show off new gameplay. That's, using the, what was it called? Sorry, we have a specific channel for you to so you can actually go and like live stream to all your players. But yeah, so there's just a lot of ways that you can keep running events for players to come and see. All right, there was a lot of information there, very dense. Hopefully I didn't ramble too much, but we covered sort of, what you want to do with your community throughout all stages of development. As you can see, there's like a lot of different things that you can do and ways that your community can and maybe should change as you think about, your game throughout its life cycle. I think the most important parts are, again, starting early. Make sure you have that community, that space for your players to come and be excited and grow together with your game. Start minimal with specifically, channels roles, and then grow them as you need them. So, I think at the end here, we've only talked about 3 different roles: developer, playtester, and moderator. You can start introducing more fun roles and different, different things, or different types of roles that you can give to players. But again, yeah, start minimal and only grow as you see need or interest. And then be present. So interact with your community, hang out, take feedback, let people know when you've like fixed their bugs. But yeah, I think probably the most important thing out of all of this is once you have your community, make sure you're there regularly, and yeah, have fun with it. So if you want to learn more, we have a couple of resources. We have a YouTube channel where we dive deeper into a lot of the technical things that I mentioned. So, like bot development, and there's some about, general game development. We have, an SDK that you can put into your game. There's all sorts of things that we dive into on our YouTube channel. We also have a Discord server where Colin and I and our other developer advocates sort of hang out and are, doing a lot of what we talked about here. We're, talking to the community. We're, reporting bugs back up to our developers, and we're trying to help people use our APIs and SDKs and stuff. So yeah, feel free to check those out. Come hang out, and then we're also going to start the Q&A section now. So if you have any general questions that Colin hasn't been able to answer yet, we can take some of those and answer them live.
First off, thank you guys. That was super informative, and I think there's already been some questions being asked from some people that Colin's been answering. But okay, there you go. We got some questions coming in.
Okay, cool. So from Alice, so how
Yeah.
can I keep my community engaged while my game isn't out yet? I imagine there are definitely ways to involve the community in the process, but I'd love to hear some specific examples. Yeah, so for this one, I think just regularly posting about what's coming, showing off screenshots. So I'm doing this for like a game I'm working on. But basically, even just like in dev, like I'm posting like sometimes the gnarliest screenshots, but just showing things off like, oh, here's a new mechanic, here's something I'm thinking about. So if you have people interested in your game and they're in your community, and you're posting things about what's in development, they're gonna kind of latch onto that and maybe be interested in either giving feedback or talking with you about your like thought process. Try to give them something to like latch onto. Post a screenshot or a video of like what you're working on, and then maybe some of your thought process behind that, and see if that kind of helps get anybody that's in that community excited about what's happening. There's also, I think, more traditional marketing methods. I'm not like, by any means a marketer. I'm coming from like super indie world, but like, I'm sure there's like more like marketing heavy ways to like do these kinds of things too. But That's what I would do personally. And from Casper, are there good examples of narrative-first game experience Discord communities, especially regarding spoilery content? Ooh, okay. So I'm actually, I would need to like look around and see. So what I would recommend actually is think about some of your favorite narrative like game experiences and go and see if they have. Yeah, we do have features to hide like spoiler content. But think about like some of your favorite games in that genre and go and see what they're doing in their communities. I think setting up specific channels to allow players to like go and say like this channel is specifically for spoilers, or even having channels for different parts of the game. Set up the space so that players. Okay, yeah, I wasn't sure if I could talk about that, but we have we have spoiler channels coming soon that allow you to gate channels behind like a spoiler warning. So when a player goes to like join that channel, they get like a, make sure you're ready to see, whatever. And you can also do like we have a way to tag our like markdown that allows you to set spoilers both in text and images. So yeah, I think creating spaces specifically in your community that are like allowed spoilers allow players who have finished the game or further in the game to actually talk more freely about what's happening. And then that might require a little bit of moderation of like making sure players aren't talking in more general spaces about things that could spoil for others. And I think you can also set up like auto mod specifically in like certain channels too, so you can actually have it. Tell me if that's right, Colin. But I think you can set it up so that it's only looking in certain channels for certain keywords. So you might be able to set it up in a way where it intercepts anything that's talking about like a final boss, or if you name certain people by name, you can have it actually intercept that and not even allow those messages to hit chat. So there's a bunch of different ways you can handle spoilery content.
Perfect. Yeah, there's another good question about like, is there a too late to start? How do you think about that?
I don't think so. I mean, I think like there's like a saying, there's the two best times to get started. One was like a year ago and the other time is right now. I don't know how the actual saying goes, something like that. But I don't think there's ever like a too late. It's going to be a little different than what we talked about here, because like maybe you already have a large community, and like if you create that, they'll all come in. But yeah, I think like honestly, creating that space at any point, especially if you're hoping to like have a place for players to come and be excited about your game. I don't think there's ever like a too late point in time. You just maybe need to think a little bit about like, how do I need to set up the server for where my game is at right now.
I have a quick question, actually.
Yes.
So many times I'm speaking to indies, their biggest struggle is getting the time and the resources to manage their community. So I was kind of wondering, what would you recommend to them? Are there any like, I don't know, activity bots or things that doesn't feel too, I don't know, body that still people can communicate and feel comfortable to interact in?
Yeah. So I think the time thing is really hard. And I know that, especially if you're super indie. I want to say that like it still kind of rings true that like you make sure that you are in there in some capacity, even if you can't like be in there all day talking. That's something that like having a great community manager would be great for. But like if it's just you or like a small team, like I would say just try to make sure that you're like posting something regularly, whether that's like a screenshot or like any information or like anything that's happening about the game. I can't even give like a good cadence. Like I think like it'd be great if you're in there like, you know, once a day or once every couple days and you post something. But yeah, like the one thing you want to try to avoid is like, you know, the classic social media like big drop, big like, you know, post and then like going silent for a while. Your community, you want to be like kind of this two-way street. So like even if you can just post a screenshot every like day or two, is a great way to like kind of show up. And then yeah, I do think there's like I know it's pretty popular in Discord to like there's a ton of community bots out there that you can find that do different things like different types of like games or like, you know, have XP in your server. There's a lot of like fun ways that players can latch onto onto things in your server, and bots are like a fun way to do that. I don't have any specific recommendations, but I would definitely say go just check out like what some of your favorite communities or like favorite games are doing, and see like how they're keeping up with like, you know, talking to players, and what sort of bots they're running in their servers is maybe a great way to like think about that.
I would add to that, like you want to make it a place that you want to hang out in. So like don't build it into this like corporate slop place, right, that you don't want to go to, because then your players aren't going to want to be there either. And if you're early and if it's just you, like set the cadence, set the culture, set the expectation that you're not going to be responding to everything, because some of these people want to be able to get your attention. We see this all the time in ours where people just ping us to ping us, and they just want someone to say hi to them. And so like there are things you'll notice that you can just set the norms of what this place is for. If you're in there all day, you're not going to ship your game either. So there's a balance that you need to set there. We do some things where we even live stream. If you're able to do live stream where you're working on your game, this is really popular on Twitch too, where people are just building their game, and you don't have to be, especially on a stage channel, you're the only one on stage, so you can kind of just tune out and just build in public if you're that kind of dev. If you need to go away and come with the feature drop every so often, that's also good too. So you're kind of creating the lore for your own server, your own game. But
fair enough. Yeah, I mean, I think I've also seen the bad side to it. Some of those corporate ones you mentioned, so you feel it definitely. But cool, thanks for that. I think we have a hand raise from Christian. If you want to go for it.
Yeah, thank you. Hi, and thank you for the talk. I was wondering about creator communities versus game communities. So a lot of devs, if they get people in early, there might be community members that are interested in the development side of things. And obviously, if you can share what you're doing, if you can be very transparent with that, it can be very interesting to bring people along the journey. But I wonder how much those interests can be transformed, if you have any experience with that, if those people will become players of your game, or if there's any maybe pitfalls that could happen if you do it like that.
Yeah, I mean, I can definitely see a lot of different ways. Like, I can see it, like as a player that would be super exciting, especially if like you end up creating something that gets put in the game. But yeah, I don't have any specific. Let me think. It's not something that I thought too much about, but like I think that's like a fantastic way to like engage your players a little bit, and like that gets them super excited, right? Like if I'm like a content creator of some sort, and like the things that I'm building end up getting put in the game, or like I can help in some way to like create the game. I do think like creating like a specific role in that case to give them is a great way to like reward them for like their contribution, also like putting them in the credits. But yeah, it's not something I've actually thought too much about.
I think on the other side of that, you could also create roles and channels for like some people are interested in the technical back end of what's going on. Some people just want the lore and the story, and some people want concept art. And so giving people options, and again, depends on how transparent you can be. I wouldn't some people want to see how you're doing multiplayer, and some people don't want that magic to be ruined either. So, people want to enjoy games and not think of it as code necessarily. But then you have a lot of game devs who are huge fans of games and want to see what people are working on. So definitely depends on the game and the stage that you're in. But almost all of this goes back to like what kind of place would you want to hang out in, and or what place that those creators would want to hang out in too.
Yep.
Yeah, thanks for the question.
Cool.
All right. Let's see. Anyone else? I think I can always have more questions, but
I wondered in the beginning about that automatic roles, so that you can directly invite people with the and apply them to an automatic role that
Yep.
doesn't need a bot at the moment. Is that right?
Yes.
So that's why, as example, DinoBot, maybe you know that.
Yep.
We are using, especially with the Games Ground community, so I can automatically change that now. So what would you recommend, especially in that kind of community? We are not showing a game or something like that. We would like to entertain a bit the audience, and of course, that not only audience. We can't say it's audience. It's of more or less friends, family, and a big, and it's really community. It's not only random people, because we all know a lot of them. So what would you recommend there, except of that, of course, try to give them updates, try to give them, tell them about other events or friends events and so on. What would you recommend to say, okay, what we could do to keep that alive? And that's difficult. It's difficult to keep it alive and to keep up interaction. You have maybe a magical formula for that? Please give it to me.
Yeah, it's tough because I like, like I said, like I think the most important thing for your community is that you are in there
Yeah, sure.
frequently and consistently. And so
Yeah, but then we could compare it to social media. Social
yes.
media needs also, of course, continuously like a seriously content. But I don't know. Sometimes I'm feeling weird sometimes, and of course, a lot of people and a lot of players are maybe also feeling weird, because we are sometimes introverts, and then
Yeah.
okay, how to interact with people with my interests, and that kind of things are interested for me, but I don't know if they are interested for the others.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, if the only way to find out if others are interested in the same thing is to talk about it. So, but
Games.
yeah, but yeah, I don't have like a magical formula, and like even all of this advice that I gave today is like
Sure.
it's not going to be the same for everybody. Like this is kind of like a skeleton framework for you to use, but like depending on your, how your community, yeah, depending on your game, the genre, the community itself, how they interact with you, like all these things are going to be, different. And the way that like you might get lucky and have a handful of players that get super excited and become kind of ambassadors, like which we can answer that question in a second. But like, yeah, like you're there. It really comes down sometimes to luck of like, do certain people in your community latch on to like, kind of being, um, big contributors in your community that kind of help take over that space. So it doesn't always have to be you. But if not, like, at the end of the day, it does have to be you and like the people, maintaining and the developers and, the community managers being in there and yeah, so I'm sorry, I don't have like a
It's
great.
completely fine, because
Yeah.
it's super difficult. I understand that, because I'm in that situation sometimes and thinking, okay,
Yeah.
is there a magical formula? But I think anyway, the magical formula is interact, try
Yeah.
things out, and try how the people react to it. And if they are like it, they will show you if they are like
Yeah.
it.
And that's actually a great point to like pay attention to. So same with like social media, and like I'm also like, you know, up here talking about these things, but I'm like, I will say I'm just like bad at all of this because I'm also like super introverted and like, you know, not great at like responding to comments and posts and all that stuff. But like if you put on like your marketing hat like a little bit, and you, as you're posting, you know, if you notice that like you're posting screenshots of your game every day and nothing's happening, but like one day, you know, you post a little video and mention like, oh, I made this change because of this, and like you get a bunch of, you know, feedback from that, maybe it makes more sense to you know, you see where the engagement's happening and like follow that thread, right? Like what are the things that you do that get the most engagement? And again, with your like marketing hat, that's great because that means maybe you cut out all the other things and you do the things that get the engagement. And that means less work for you because now you know this gets me engagement, this doesn't.
Sure.
I'll lean more into doing things this way, and you know, maybe you figure out what that cadence is. But again, yeah, like that's very like broad general advice, but like
Yeah, sure. It's not that
yeah,
easy.
I think it's important to pay attention to the like what are the things that are actually getting engagement. I
But
know
you,
in a time
but you said
like
before in direction of don't have that kind of bunch of informations like what we did as example in LinkedIn posts or in Instagram posts, that you're putting a bunch of information like a press release, something like that,
yeah,
or similar, but maybe also short-term informations, which is maybe one update. Hey, by the way, we are
mhm,
been to that and that event, or if we are changing it to a game. A funny thing, we had a bug last night, and it was a super funny situation. That kind of, yeah, it's community interest, I would say. Would you say prefer that kind of information than mirroring informations from social media?
yeah, 100%. So I would treat your Discord server a little differently. I will say, like, you know, we talked about having that announcement channel, and with that, you can actually probably mirror your social media. Like if you do like a big post about, you know, a DLC update, it makes sense to mirror that in your announcement channel. Um, but you can always like break that down and just be a little bit more like human in talking about it in like your server. So you know, maybe you have like a huge um, set of bug fixes and like an update. Maybe you pick one out that's like really like, you know annoyed players, and you like bring it up in your game chat, and you know, talk about it a little bit more casually and see if players are excited about it in that way. But yeah, you can like break apart those like bigger posts that you're doing in other places and sort of trickle them in different ways into your like chat. And yeah, again, like be like more human and less like I'm throwing this at social media, and just be like, oh, like, you know, we fixed this because we noticed you guys were talking, you know, about this performance issue for so long. You know, just a heads up, like it's fixed in patch, you know, 1.2 tomorrow. Um, yeah.
I'm gonna jump in here for a second, Tom. That was a strong question. So we actually, Colin, there was a bunch that came in that I see you're answering. I'm wondering if we can pick a few.
Yeah, Colin, do you want to take a couple of this?
Yeah, I'd say, let's see. We have another one from Christian here. So do you have any experience with communities changing? For example, multiple games get released and get engagement on your company's Discord server. I would say we've seen some folks who want to just have a server for all of their games. It's tricky if the games have very different players or very different cultures. So it's tricky to have multiple communities because it means you have to run and grow multiple communities. But it tends to mean like the company, back to like the culture of the server, and just the player base and like the updates tend to work better in their own server. But you could do one server with roles. So what's really nice about roles is that you could define certain channels for certain roles. And so you could actually have your server onboarding that says, which games do you play, and then when they opt into those roles, they only see those channels so that non-players don't see them. But yeah, very similarly, like your community is going to change with your game. So whether it's new features or new games, new DLCs, any of those kinds of things, you can kind of grow it as your game grows. The companies where we've seen this not work as well are like the really big ones, right? Like you're not going to necessarily want to join an EA server, given that like all of the games are going to be different. Or if you're thinking about like a publisher having one, unless you have like a really rabid fan base of a certain publisher. So hopefully that answers that. Are there any best practices on how to distribute a build for players on your Discord server, Google Drive, Steam Playtest, demo, NDA, yes or no? This is definitely where having like community invites or using even a bot or creating like a form process on a website. It's completely up to you how you build this out. I do know that like we can support a certain size of file upload on Discord, but I would treat this like, especially if you want it to not get shared out, I would recommend using NDAs if you need them. Make sure you set expectations that like if someone's not following the rules, they're not going to be allowed to participate in future things like this. Any recommendations you have, Anthony?
Yeah, I was typing in chat. itch.io is great for this sort of thing because you can set up like password protected builds. I think private, like unlisted builds that you can share like to specific people. And I think they can handle like much larger sized files than Discord. So
yeah, and I answered this one in chat, but I'm gonna kind of do voice over it. The idea that like once you put your game on Steam, you get a lot of spam, or same with a Discord server. You're always gonna have the drive-by, user bots and bots joining things, and so there was a slide, and we'll have a recording and slides after this, but around you can enable the mobile verification for people to join your server. There's also a lot of really good bots for doing like user verification, where there's like two-step a DM where they have to verify that they're human. A lot of games too, and we didn't talk about it in this, where we have our own social SDK. So if you're interested in like really leveraging Discord, you can check that out, where you can do account linking. So if you want to have Discord auth in your game, then you can verify that they are a real person, that they are a real player, and that helps you to know like how many of your users are actually in your server are also players, which is really nice. I think we covered all the questions.
I think so as well. There was this one about at which point you don't need at which point you need a dedicated community manager. Did you already answer that one, or?
Yeah, that one you'll kind of know, you'll feel it, but you are going to be the first community manager. Like Anthony and I are community managers for the DDevs server. We wish we had a full-time community manager, but it's hard to justify sometimes. But also, like if I would think about it like this, like if the community is important to you, you invest in it, it will help your game grow, and vice versa. So definitely think about that. What's the best ARG you saw done via Discord server? Have you seen any of these, Anthony?
I know we have there's a case study that we put out.
There was one with Marathon, and I'm a Marathon player, and it was really popular.
Do you want to talk about that one? Let me find the case study while you do that.
I did not take part in it, but we have this platform that we call Activities, where you can build web games and web experiences in Discord. And I know Marathon used that for kind of taking the lore drop, and we had people from Marathon who were like dissecting every sound and QR code so I don't know if this is the one.
No, this is Sabotage Studio.
Sea of Stars.
Yeah.
So the cool thing here is that ARG could take many forms. Like Anthony talked about, having a bot that bridges between your game and your server. What's really cool, I think, like Helldivers has a really cool system where certain like you get the I forgot what they call them. I play this game so much. You get the announcements every week where it's like, this is what we got to do, the mission of the week. Those missions get posted into Discord as in the same voice and style as they are in the game. And so really bringing that into your servers so that, in some cases, things that are happening in your game are the activity that's happening in your server. So if you're feeling like your server needs some life, what types of things from your game could you bring in there? If you have day-night cycles in your game, Anthony's been working on like a bug catching game, right? So it's like, if you were doing those kinds of things, what can you blend the lines between the game and the community in certain ways?
Cool. Guys, I think we went a little bit over, but so thanks for actually allowing that.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, it's been super helpful, and I think we have this recorded as well, so we're gonna put this out so more people can see this and share it. And yeah, again, thanks a lot for all your time and for answering all these questions. I guess from here, everyone has the QR code here, so they can always kind of reach out and ask for more answers. Perfect. Ooh, Marius has a hand up. Was that on purpose? I guess not.
Thanks so much for having us, by the way, too.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Of course.
been super great. Always great to like talk to the game developers and yeah, especially about stuff like this. I think it's super important.
Absolutely, and hopefully we can get you guys out to Berlin in November. Otherwise, another virtual session. And yeah, thanks for inaugurating the first GG SideQuest webinar sessions. So
Yeah,
Amazing.
yeah.
thanks everyone for joining.
Too.
Thank you.
Bye, guys.
See ya.
Was geht ab?